Welcome, my friends, to AI powered Agile Leadership and the PMI-ACP Exam. This is day 5 in 7 days to commemorate my 20 years of being a PMP and my 9 years of being an ACP. What exactly is Agile is a question that I often get from people who have heard it a lot in industry, but it's never really been broken down for them. And I just tell them Agile is a mindset, a posture, a philosophy that enables you pivot to the ever-changing world around you to maximize value and benefits for yourself, your customer, your stakeholders. So what you can take away from my definition right off the bat is Agile has to start off in the mind. Agile is not a bunch of frameworks. It's not doing Scrum or doing Kanban or doing some of those dreaded scaling techniques. It's none of that. It starts off in the mind. So I'm going to go through Agile, the basics. It's going to be extremely rapid. So hold tight because this is going to be the quickest of all my presentations in this series. All right. So when you think about the word Agile, again, it's a state of mind. And this is where I want you to start thinking. I want you to understand that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, as Darwin said, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. And don't we see this in business? Those that are adaptable to change, they remain. Let me give you some examples. I call it the law of adaptability. Businesses that fail to evolve fade into history. Those that embrace change thrive in a competitive world, and agility is not an option, it's a necessity for survival. Welcome to the conversation today. My name's Phil. I've been a PMP since 2005, and this year makes it 20 years that I've been training and coaching people for the PMP exam and in other topics. And one of the topics I picked up along the way in my 11th year of being certified, 2016, was the world of Agile. And that's why today I have chosen to talk about Agile, because every day of the 7 days leading up to my 20th anniversary of being a PMP, which happens on the 25th of June, I've been talking about the different certifications that I have. So today is Agile Day. And a lot of times people don't understand that Agile is not frameworks. It's not a bunch of methodologies. It's mindset first and foremost. Now, it's not only mindset, but you got to start off in the mind, right? Agile is a way of thinking that prioritizes flexibility, collaboration, and adaptability, and it enables teams to pivot. So I say Agile is a mindset that enables you pivot to the ever-changing world around you. Now look at the ever-changing world around us. There are organizations that didn't pivot. You know them. I'm going to give you a few quick examples. Kodak, they invented the digital cameras, but they ignored them, right? They said, well, let's hide it under the table because if people see the digital camera, they won't want to buy our hardware anymore. That's ridiculous. So who's king of the hill now? It's Apple, right? The iPhone is dominating photography. Oh, let's throw in a few others like the Google's, what do they call that phone? Chat in if you know what that phone's called. Then we have Blockbuster, prime example of how not to do business. They were not agile. They ignored online streaming. And when Netflix came begging them, buy us, they said, get out, you varmints. We're not buying you. How unagile. They couldn't see the trend. They couldn't see that Netflix should have been bought. And look at Netflix today, dominating, killing it. Now, Blockbuster had a very weak comeback with something they tried to do with Enron. It was more like a joke. I don't know if you saw that interface. Pathetic. Then you've got Circuit City, stuck in bricks in a regular store instead of pivoting to e-commerce. Amazon's ended up winning, right? Toys R Us, another example. Amazon ended up, pretty much taking them out of business. There's an interesting spin on that story, and they might deny it, but it really boiled down to Amazon dominating crazily. Then you got one of my favorite stores in the UK, TM Lewin. They struggled with e-commerce because they had bricks and mortars and they wanted people to go into the stores. And when COVID hit, people weren't going into stores. So TM Lewin pretty much had to give up their assets. Not a very nice story. So, why am I telling you all these stories? Because agility is a mindset that enables you pivot. Blockbuster didn't pivot. Netflix did pivot, right? That's one example. Circuit City didn't pivot. Amazon did. Businesses that thrive, they adapt. Okay, so when you hear the word agile, you got to first see it as a mindset that enables you pivot to the ever changing world around you. So, on what is agile based? Now, before 2001, there wasn't really a talk about agile, it was other things. Now, it's not to say that agile didn't exist, it did exist in its raw form, but it wasn't bottled as agile until 2001. And to read the story, you can go to agilemanifesto.org and read about the 17 individuals who wrote the Agile Manifesto. But it's a collection of values and principles, and these values and principles, they enable agile thought in your day-to-day life, in your business, on your projects, on your endeavors. And the manifesto values, it just says, we've been uncovering ways of developing product by doing it and helping others do it. And through this work, this is them talking, we've come to value. These are the things that make you agile, right? One, valuing individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Note, I didn't say choosing. I didn't say choosing individuals and interactions over processes and tools. This is not an either or. This is value. It's a mindedness. So, in your mind's eye, you value people, you value your team, you value your stakeholders, and the interactions with those people, as opposed to valuing the processes and tools more. You value having a working product over big old documentation that is not needful. And if you really think about it, what good is the document if the product isn't working? Number three, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. You see, it's a mindedness. When you value collaboration, the negotiation goes better. And you value responding to change over following a plan. You know, Mike Tyson says everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. Isn't that true? When life gives you a kick, your little plan flies out of the window. Then you got to be agile. So the concept of agility is one of mindset first. Let's go into the principles. There are 12 principles. I'll go over them really quickly. And I just bucketize them into four pieces. So the first set is deliver value early and often, deliver working software frequently, satisfy your customer through early and continuous delivery, whether you are delivering a burger or food. Yeah, keep the customer happy. After the burger, what next? What can I deliver next? Maybe it's a napkin, maybe it's a drink, but it's a mindedness to deliver value that the customer wants. It's value through the customer's eyes, and do it early, do it continuously, and you do it early so that you can get feedback and you can put that back into the mix, right? Working products are the primary measure of progress, not schedules and not percent completes. The next big concept is embracing change and adaptation. Welcome changing requirements even late. Understand that we're not robots. We need a break. We as humans, we cannot commit to doing 80, 100-hour weeks. So it makes sense to commit to what you can handle. Sustainable pace of work. I call it don't kill the team. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design. It helps you to be more agile. The next bucket here is foster collaboration and empowerment. This just says if you're working in an agile environment, you got to work together daily, business people and developers, and build projects around motivated individuals. You see, there's a difference having the motivated individuals stationed and building the projects around them versus the traditional way, which is having the project and then, oh, let's get a bunch of people around this project. It's a different mindedness because when you have a stable, organized team, they can do wonders. Now, when you don't have that in place, you're scrambling to get team cohesion. You're going through the 5 stages of team development over and over and over again. And that doesn't make sense. So I often tell people, companies that say, well, Phil, I guess Agile can't work here because we're in the AEC environment, architecture, engineering, construction. And I say you're wrong. It actually could work if you have agile mindedness to pivot Agile mindedness, to start thinking of teams that can take on projects as opposed to projects that suck teams into them, then spit them out singly, then you put together another team. What a waste of equity. What a waste of sweat equity and going through the 5 stages of team development over and over again. So it's a mindedness. And I've trained and coached companies that have embraced this in construction, in engineering, in products. And then lastly, face to face conversation is most effective. Now, some people argue, I've had teams that say, well, Phil, it's Zoom. Zoom is better for us because when we want to get together and swarm and mob on stuff, we got to meet virtually. And I'm like, I understand, but under most intents and purposes, it makes sense to have face to face conversation because, the great Professor Emeritus Albert Morabian, he gives the example in his research that when there's no congruence between words, tone of voice, and body language, what do people do? They amp up the body language weightage. So they are judging what you're saying largely based on the body language. You're doing it based on the body language. You're not doing it based on words. You often hear talk is cheap. Well, if the words and the tone of voice and the body language are congruent, good. But if they're not, it's going to be them seeing you. Have you ever been in a meeting and you're looking at your colleagues and you're like, Phil, what's wrong? You seem lost. And it's like, yeah, I don't really get what you're saying. Now imagine if you took away that body language, that nonverbal cue that Phil's giving you. Maybe he's scratching his head or his, twirling his pencil around. There's so many advantages of face to face. But what the Agile Manifesto is saying is face to face is effective because it's content rich. You got 55% body language if there's no congruence, right? We weigh the body language roughly 55%. The tone of voice is 38%, and the words is just 7. So this is just underscoring that important observation. Lastly, reflect, learn, and improve. Make things simple. Maximize the work not done, not the work done. Someone says, how? Well, let's say you got a whole boatload of things you're thinking of doing to offer this amount of value. How about doing that amount of stuff while still maintaining the amount of value? It's a mindedness. It's almost like an engineering process where you have to engineer your processes to be leaner and meaner. Cut out the fat, cut out the muda, cut out the waste. It's a mindedness. It's a posture, you see. Teams reflect and improve regularly. And in order to do this, you should have an introspection all the time asking, how can we be better? What can we do better? The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self organizing teams. So when you allow the team to have space, to have room, you give them the environment and support they need, let them come up with the solution. The great Steve Jobs, he said it well. He said, we don't hire the smart people to tell them what to do. We hire the smart people so they can tell us what to do. So we know when to get out of the team's way, whether they are engineers, pharmacists, technicians, field service people. When you have made the right hiring decision, you've brought the right people together. My goodness, they'll amaze you. They work wonders. And I've seen this time and time again. Having a great team will help you get further along when you leave them alone to do what you hire them to do, not when you're meddling. A lot of managements meddle with their teams. Don't meddle, just let them show their greatness. That's really the thesis here. So the summary of this, my friends, is Agile is not about speed. It's about being responsive. It's heavily about value and collaboration. It's about learning, and it's about delivering continuously and sustainably. That's really what it's about. So, with that said, you have a very good idea of what Agile is about. And I want to encourage you because I know some of you want to learn more. If you want to learn more about Agile, go to Amazon and look for Agile Principle Raw and Uncut. My Agile coach Roy and I, we wrote a book called Agile Principle Raw and Uncut. And this book just helps demystify a lot about Agile. It makes it simple, it makes it very transparent. All right. So we've talked about the 4 values, right? We've talked about the 12 principles. Now we're going to move into a very easy to understand framework that is used quite a lot in this world of Agile, and it's called Kanban. And the rules of Kanban, they're very simple. Just start with what you do now. respect current roles and responsibilities. You don't need any special roles in Kanban. You just start where you are. And it encourages acts of leadership at all levels because everyone jumps in to help everyone else. And you are pursuing incremental evolutionary change. Now, what does Kanban look like? Because I know some of you might have seen Kanban, but just don't know it's Kanban. This is an example of a Kanban board. Has three columns of to do, doing, and done. And all these numbers represent cards or tasks or requests, things that you have to do. But you list them. Priority is very hard for people, but you got to prioritize what to do. And as you've prioritized what to do in the world of Kanban, guess what we do? We begin doing it, but we do it with a mindset of having work in progress limits. We're not just going to move all four things into the doing column. No, we're going to move them one at a time. So if this is individual Kanban, you're doing this yourself, and you got all these tasks, let's say four things you need to do, as you begin executing them, you're not going to do them all at once. You're going to have some work in progress limits. Maybe as an individual, you start working on one thing, but you require something from another team member. It's okay that while that thing is out, you could be working on the second item, but you will not exceed two items in the doing. And the clause has to be that one is out to someone else. You could even get more creative and you could split doing into two columns so that if someone's working on one, you put it on one side of the column and the other one that you're working on, it's very identifiable. But the concept is this is going to help you track your work and be intentional. So when you receive what you were waiting for back, you signify that this is done. You don't go starting something else. You finish number two. You get the number two item over to done, and then you move to the third item. So there's a mindedness about Kanban. And there's a lot to be said about Kanban. I actually wrote a book about this called King Kanban. It goes pretty deep into Kanban. So the 5 principles of Kanban, you got to have this visual, right? Visualize the workflow, limit your WIP, like I said, work in progress, and manage the flow. You got to track the flow of work through the system. There are also measurements that you could make to understand how effective you are in the process and make process policies explicit. So if you're doing this as a team sport, if you're working with people, it's very important that you make things explicit and you improve collaboratively. So in this example, we have the WIP limit of 5 in pending, 3 in analysis. You can see we've broken analysis into doing and done, development into doing and done with a WIP limit of 5, test the WIP limit of 3, and deploy the WIP limit of 1. So this is the very basics. There's a lot more to learn about Kanban. Like I said, just look for the book called King Kanban. All right. Now, moving on, because there's so many things I have to talk about. For Agile to work, there's a certain mindedness, and that mindedness is exemplified in the Stacy complexity model. And the Stacy complexity model, what it's showing us here, I'm going to use the pointer as I speak. So taking a look here, we have the y-axis of requirements uncertainty and the x-axis of technical uncertainty. And what we're saying here is that you're going to be in some situations where the requirements are very uncertain over here, and instances where the requirements are really, really certain, right? And you're here. There are going to be instances where the way you go about doing the work, the technicalities of it are certain. And there are going to be instances where they're far from certain. When you have close to agreement in requirements and close to certainty in the technicality, it's okay to be in this simple zone, which is really more of a predictive kind of project. But as you begin to move towards more uncertainty, things get more complicated. They may have more moving parts. They may have more human elements. And with humans comes complications, right? But you could still largely use a predictive approach. It's like assembling a watch. It has thousands and thousands of parts. But if you follow the manual, just like I realized when I was little, I'll take my mom's watches and I will want to experiment by taking the pieces apart. But if you follow the way you came, no matter how many pieces there are, you can put that watch back together. And that's an example of complicated. So complicated means we need to start thinking a little bit more agilely, but at the same time, you could be largely predictive. Now, when you hit complex, this is where you're moving further away from certainty. And this is a very good place for you to be more agile because you're doing a lot of experiments, there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of trial and error. And trial and error is okay, especially in environments like R&D in innovation. It's okay to be agile. So predictive works best over here, but agile works best where there's high variability, where there's a need to experiment to discover the best solution, and where change is likely. Now, when you get into anarchy space, which is like craziness, free for all, something's got to give. And this is where you can apply even more agile thinking and actions to break down what needs to be done, to bring it into a more manageable zone. There's no sense leaving things in anarchy realm. You got to bring them down by breaking things down into smaller pieces. So, in order for Agile to work, you need buy in from management, of course, and you need what we call T shaped skills. And you also need the team to be co located. Now, what do we mean by T shaped skills? By T shaped skills, we just mean a broad skill set, like the letter T. It's a broad skill set and it's got a deep specialism. But that's not the only specialism some folks have. Some people could code, they could test, they could be involved in some implementation, or you in the world of art you have someone who's good with pencil and good with charcoal and good with paint, watercolor, or oil. So what we're saying is that on every team, having a broad skill set among the team members, it just helps you be more agile. Because what you're going to do is jump in to help your team members, right? That's what agility is all about. It's a team sport. Okay. And contrary to what a lot of people think, agile is not just for IT. Agile can be used in any realm. It could be a mindset that is used to approach business in any realm. Nimbleness and agility, those go hand in hand. Now, before we round up, there's a couple of things we got to talk about. One of them is the concept known as Scrum. And Scrum is a lightweight approach to organizing work to solve complex problems. It's very relevant to the world of Agile. The way it works is we have a product backlog of things that need to be done, and that backlog is going to get broken down so that we can incrementally take on the work. We take on the work in these iterations called sprints. So we have a sprint planning event. The sprints are 4 weeks or less. And the very first thing we do in the sprint is to plan what are we going to do in the next few weeks. Now, maybe it's 2 weeks. So the question could be, what are we going to do in the next 2 weeks to move us towards a goal? When you're done with that, you get a sprint backlog. And the sprint backlog is a list of what you're going to do within that time frame. Let's take 2 weeks, but really 4 weeks or less is a limit. Some people could even have a sprint in days. Now, as is custom in Scrum, we have what we call a daily Scrum. And the daily Scrum is a sync up meeting where the team members share where they're going so that they can understand when to take the baton from another team member. And it's just making everyone aware. This is not a status meeting. This is not a percent complete meeting, but it's really what have we done to move towards the goal so everyone's on the same page. That's what it is. In the middle of the sprint, we take a look at our product backlog. We break down the work that might be too big. We organize the work. We estimate some of the work. We call it a backlog refinement session. And then at the end of the 2 weeks or however long, we get what we call a potentially shippable increment. And it's a unit that is ready to be shipped. Now, it doesn't always have to be shipped because it may not be featured enough. It's ready, but it doesn't make sense to ship it. Like shipping a database without the front end for the customer to see the data. Doesn't make sense. So you have to make sure it's featured enough. The next thing that happens is a sprint review where we not only demo what was built, but we also work with the stakeholders, the customer, to better understand their perspective for what we've built. And if there are any other requests or requirements, we can gather those in that meeting. Generally, we look at them as requests because they are not necessarily required at that point. So those requests, which we, in many instances in the world of Agile, may refer to as stories or user stories, those could get put into the backlog. And it's not a given that they're going to be done, but it's a good place for us to understand the needs of the customer more. And then finally, we have what we call a sprint retrospective. And this is where we retrospect, we look in the rearview mirror, and we ask what went well and what can we improve on right now. It's different from a lessons learned, right? In the lessons learned, you're saying, well, what are we going to improve on next project, or what went well and what didn't go so well, and then no action is taken. That's just no good. So it's very important that you see this as being different. Okay, it's very different. All right. So, my friends, let's move on to the grand finale because I am pretty constrained for time. And I just give you a very quick idea about Agile PMOs. Agile PMOs, we can look at them as a structure that supports agility. Now, I rather wouldn't call it a PMO. I like looking at these constructs as value delivery offices, or you can even build a community of practice to support Agile thought and agile leadership in the firm. So it's important that you see it as an empowerment way of helping the team better understand principles and ideas and working together, and each person being a potential champion. The core mindset shifts in this realm is not see yourself as a process police, not see yourself as a one size fits all, but to see that agile construct, if you want to call it a VDO or an agile PMO, that's okay. But see it as being a value enabler and see it as being empowering people to take the agile concepts, be champions, and to embrace the idea of collaboration, working together, right? This could also be part of a dynamic PMO, hybrid or dynamic PMO. I know in some organizations it's hard not to have a traditional PMO, but I encourage people to have more of a hybrid and agile thought to project management offices. Okay. In closing, I'm going to give you some very quick tips, and I might continue this another day, but I want to give you some ideas about how we can use artificial intelligence in Agile. And I have tools I would have loved to show you, but I can't show you a whole lot of tools today. This will probably be a part two at some other point. But how can AI be used in the world of Agile? Let's examine very quickly. Now, I know this will get some consternation from some of the Agile zealots who say, don't use AI, it's individuals and interactions. Well, you can't force people not to use AI. So I might as well give some ideas how to do it nicely. So, backlog management and prioritization by taking a look at historical information. Recommending backlog priorities is one thing. What about user story quality and clarity? You can ask, hey, check, make sure that the INVEST acronym was in there. What does INVEST mean? And again, the Agile zealots don't like INVEST. You don't have to use INVEST as a gate, but it could be used to articulately craft stories. INVEST is all about independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small enough to fit within a sprint, and testable. So there's nothing wrong in that. There's nothing wrong. Just don't do it dogmatically. Sprint and release planning, you could use AI to forecast velocity based on historical information, adjust for team dynamics, and recommend realistic scopes. You can also use it for sentiment analysis of team communication, for tools that process words being spoken and countenance, right? It could be very helpful. What about retrospectives? It could help you aggregate sprint data and detect systemic blockers and things such as that. When it comes to the world of QA and defect prediction, AI can help you there as well, not to mention in agile, portfolio, and program management. If you have good data, AI can help you in many ways. It can also help you in AI assisted coaching and learning. It could suggest agile practice improvements. It could recommend targeted learning resources. And why does it fit so well? Because agile is all about empiricism, right? AI can take that data from your specific world and it could convert it into actionable insights. Okay. It's all about the TIA factor: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And AI can help you in every single one of these. I want to say a big thank you to you, my friends, for joining me today. I usually go for about a couple of hours, but unfortunately today my time is very constrained. I want to give a shout out to my friends for coming through. Donnell saying if you need a job, holler at him. And Sharon, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming through. My friends on Instagram, Sumit Avail, Anosh. I am Coach Trina, ja- Jazzvant, and Warpy Covacles. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you. I look forward to having this discussion again sometime soon.